All right. So the first thing that I had was this Tango Game Works thing. So this is, look, I hate to see that they closed, but like this adds some clarity to it. You know what I mean? Like if all this is factual information, like I mean, okay, I guess I can understand it as much as I don't like it. So when the studio was acquired, Bethesda wanted them to make AAA games. Meanwhile, the studio wanted to be one to develop smaller games, such as like Hi-Fi Rush and what they've done before.
Well,
So kind of a conflict of interest on that front.
but you would think you would iron that out before the acquisition.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I
Yeah.
read that. It's like you think that would be handled before
Yeah.
Bethesda ever bought you in like
Yeah.
2010.
You would think that the conversation before the final purchase would be made.
Yeah.
It's like okay, we're agreeing on this, or it's like we're either agreeing on this or we're buying you. We're telling you what you're doing,
Yeah,
and it's like that. You would think that would be the end of it.
I agree. So the next thing is apparently Matt Booty's approach to the closure. And this same thing goes for any sort of closure, and it goes for Arkane as well. So number one, what kind of leadership do you have? Number two, is the current team the same team that was successful in the past? And number three, is the team poised to success in the future? Let's be honest. I think that was three very fair reasons on why you should look at closing a studio. So when looking at Tango and Arkane, both just didn't meet the criteria, basically. So with Arkane, they had lost 70% of their staff post Redfall. Jesus Christ, Redfall. The studio leader apparently did not show any leadership on Redfall, and basically the Redfall results were very poor, to put it lightly. So literally, Redfall murdered that studio, top to bottom, which is super unfortunate for Arkane Austin. And then when it comes to Tango, so Shinji Mikami, who is basically the studio's spiritual leader, he left. Two of the three people that Shinji thought would replace him left. Ghostwire Tokyo, sales performance did not really meet expectations. Bethesda apparently was already considering closing Tango. They had the unexpected success of Hi-Fi, and then the PS5 launch of Hi-Fi was going to be a measuring stick on if Hi-Fi can be a successful franchise and basically save Tango, and apparently it flopped on the PS5.
Well, part of the problem with that, and it's a weird thing or it's part of the weird thing of like having, or like Microsoft's kind of strategy of like putting certain games over to PlayStation 5, and then because the way they phrased it was along the lines of the game can no longer grow in its own ecosystem. Let's try to send it out so it can grow some more. The problem is all the people that were on PlayStation that you could have got to play this game immediately probably played the game elsewhere.
Yeah, they probably played it on like either PC Game Pass or just maybe they had an Xbox Series S.
It's like they had like you can't let a game go out there and expend all of its momentum and then send it to another console and expect it to do well from that point. All the hype was gone.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unfair for that to be the measuring stick, in my opinion. It's like, granted, it's like you're looking for a metric, but you basically stack the deck to make it come out how you're looking for it to as your metric for like success. It's like, oh, we're considering closing you. If you do really well on PS5, then we'll consider it. But also you've got no momentum and we don't care.
Basically,
It's kind of how it feels like it looks.
Yeah, I agree. When it comes to the two closures and the details for it, Arkane totally makes sense. I mean, especially when you lose 70% of your staff. That makes sense. For the Tango thing, like I agree, it's not fair to make that your measuring stick. Here's what I would have pitched of like Hi-Fi Rush was the Game of the Year nominee, right? Like, I mean, it was like a highly acclaimed game. Well, apparently, 2 of 3 people he thought would replace him left. That means there's 1 left. Why not make them the spiritual successor? Give them 1 more shot. Let them make a Hi-Fi Rush 2. It worked. It was a huge success. Let them do a second one. See how it goes. But I don't know. I feel like the plug got pulled.
Well, it's also the problem of like you want them to make a different style game than they want to make.
Yeah, that's true too.
It's like you're telling them they have to make a different style game than what they want to make, when they make the style game they want to make, they made a Game of the Year nominee. Why not? Yeah, it's like you said. Why not give them the one last chance and go, prove us wrong, make what you want to make.
Yeah.
But didn't happen. Unfortunately, closed the studio. So is what it is. But yeah, it's one of these where it's like we can look at it and go, yeah. I mean, did nobody present this as an option? They probably did, but it's the same thing of like they're already considering closing them. Then there's not a lot you can do to save that. If they're already considering it, they're not going to give you the several years it's going to take to make yourself a new game.
Right.
And try to prove yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're on the chopping block now.
Yeah. Which is, top to bottom, really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Especially for Arkane, man. The fact that Redfall was literally the sole thing that murdered the studio, it adds almost like a different level of hatred for that game, I imagine, by the developers, and everyone at Redfall, at Arkane. It's like they probably have a different level of hatred for that game because it's like that game murdered a studio. So very unfortunate. Shout out to John for playing it. What a legend. Almost beating it too. You almost beat it.
Yeah.
Impressive.